Twilight Imperium is the quintessential Who Stole My Weekend board game. So how to butter and toast do you distill all that gameplay into a roll and write? Welcome to Twilight Inscription in 5 minutes or less. The scene is a familiar one. A once great empire has gone the way of the dodo, and you play as one of the myriad factions looking to pick up the pieces and make hay while multiple stars shine. Being a roll and write game, you'll be rolling dice and then writing, or more aptly marking spaces on one of the 4 sheets that represent navigation, expansion, industry and warfare. However, you're not writing every turn, as the phases of the game are dictated by the communal event cards that are drawn. The bulk of these are the strategy cards, where you nominate an active sheet and then use the die facings to start marking. Each sheet has their own rules and objectives. Warfare will see you marking shapes that represent your military might. Industry is about strategically scrapping and claiming resources to increase trade and political influence. Expansion will see you harvest the resources of planets and obtain bonuses when you complete its rows and columns. And navigation is all about exploration, which can unlock resources and access to said planets. But interspersed with these turns are war cards that will trigger conflicts with adjacent players, bestowing rewards to those with greater strength. Council cards that trigger political events that enable you to use the votes you've accrued from your industry sheet. And production cards that bolster your resource engine. There's all sorts of small additions to the core gameplay, upgrading each sheet so that you can use more of the dice rolled or take more powerful turns. Use your faction cards' passive and special abilities, and access special resources that unlock upgrade paths, or draw relics that aid your cause. With each sheet providing its own subtotal score, the game then ends after a mostly fixed amount of turns. There is, as you'd hope, a lot to like about the implementation of the dice rolling and the associated actions you can take on the sheets, each of which are distinct thematically, but with enough mechanical crossover to make them easy to pick up. None feel particularly superior, and so the objectives and your opponent's choices will subtly influence your decisions without having it spelt out for you. There's also a great deal of variability on show. Each sheet has a fixed layout and a random one on the flip side, dependent on you and your group's preference. The order of phase cards is only semi-predictable, and the absolute bucket load of factions you can choose from create a sense of identity, leaving you with plenty of replayability so long as the core mechanics tickle your pickle. There is, it has to be said, a nice balance between the game's Euro elements that see you studying your sheets with head firmly ensconced in your own affairs, and the interactions you have with others. It's not the easiest thing to achieve that sense of engagement in this type of game, but the warfare, the political intrigue and the fighting for objectives all keep you on your toes. The main downside of having 4 disparate sheets is centred around the frustration of only being able to pick one each turn. Not because it stresses you to make the most efficient choices, but because it makes you feel like you're tinkering all the time, rather than planning galactic domination. It's less immersive than you think it could be, because you'd like to be doing everything all at once. And as an extension to that point, its efforts to include everything but the kitchen sink inevitably result in some areas feeling like bolt-ons, with the somewhat trivial council voting phases the most obvious example. And this is where its ambition becomes a drawback. It's simply not that easy to boil 4X mechanics down to this size of package. If you're looking for similar games, then Hadrian's Wall and Dinosaur Island Roar and Write can be used as a point of reference. As for Twilight Inscription, it's a bold and beautiful effort at making something huge that bit more accessible. Alas, I've been the voice of Benji, and this video has ended. So, what should I do for the rest of my weekend?